Khari on Insight. What is it like when you lose someone that you love? You lose them in the prime of their life. And then you have to pick up the pieces and go on and try to find meaning in your life, try to understand why it happened, and where do you go from here. Joining me is someone who had to do that, has picked up the pieces in her life, moved forward, is doing great things, not only for her life, but for the lives of many other people, not only in Central Ohio, but around the world. Daphne Bell is here. She is the wife of former NFL Chicago Bear great Todd Bell. She has been an author, well, she is an author right now, and she's got more books to come out, radio show host and wife. And she's a great, great lady, and we are so proud to have her to join us on This is Khari. How you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing great, Khari. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good to see you.
This is a fantastic book.
Thank you.
The Pain Didn't Kill Me. I mean, I picked it up, couldn't put it down. See, I read so many books.
I know you do.
A lot of times I read a book, I say, oh, here we go again. Let me see what this. I picked this thing up and I couldn't put it down.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm
this
glad
is
to
a
hear
great book.
Thank you.
Great.
You.
I mean, the way you laid it out, the way you told your story is fascinating. But let's start at the very beginning. When you say the pain, what do you mean by the pain?
Well, in my case, I mean the emotional and the mental pain, because I've gone through a lot. I walked the reader through my challenges. I lost 2 sisters to cancer, my mom to breast cancer. My dad died of complications from Alzheimer's. And then I lost my husband suddenly of a massive heart attack. So all of the things that I've gone through, and then I battled some health issues of my own. And, you know, they say whatever doesn't kill you makes you strong. Some of the things in my life that I feel like I've gone through were really designed to kill me, but because I made a decision to live, the pain didn't kill me. So that's what the story is about. It's really my life story.
Let's back up and go back to leading up to Todd Bell's situation. I remember meeting him on many occasions.
He spoke so highly of you.
Oh, this was a great brother. I'm telling you, everybody said that about him. He was just a magnificent personality, great person, tremendous humanitarian, and the world will miss his presence. But the beauty is that you're carrying on not only his legacy, but your legacy
yes.
and your family's legacy, and you're producing an incredible, incredible effect. And we're going to get into that in just a minute. Let's walk up to what happened on that fateful day.
Well, on March 16, 2005, our day started just like every other day started. The alarm clock goes off. I get up to get in the shower. After I'm getting dressed, Todd goes downstairs to prepare my breakfast like he did every day. Takes my bag to my car and sticks his head in the door. It was a Wednesday morning. He said, see you later, because he always loved to go running early in the morning. If it wasn't extremely cold or the weather wasn't really bad, Todd was outside running around 5 in the morning. Same thing that morning. He stuck his head in the door and said, see you later. I said, okay. I headed out to work. He headed to the track. And literally about 7 minutes after Todd left our house, he had a massive heart attack behind the wheel of his car. And he crashed into a home on his way to the track. And by the time the paramedics got there, he was already gone.
My goodness. Was there any indication, and I'm sure being a former NFL football player, I'm sure he's gone to the doctor, he's had checkups,
yes.
et cetera, et cetera. Were there any indications to lead you to believe that he had a heart condition?
Well, you know what, Khari, the funny thing is about Todd. Todd had just had his physical 3 weeks prior to his death. His blood pressure was 117/79.
I wish I had that kind of blood pressure.
His blood pressure was excellent. His triglycerides were great. His good cholesterol was excellent. His bad cholesterol, though, was slightly elevated on that day. And our doctor told Todd, he said, I think you have the beginning stages of heart disease. He said, but because of your diet and your exercise regimen, I'm not concerned about it. We're going to take a look at it in a couple months, come back, and if your numbers are not down in a couple months, I'm going to consider putting you on a cholesterol lowering med. Well, in the meantime, he had written a prescription for Todd to get a heart scan, which I know Todd intended to do because I found it in his briefcase after he died. But just like all of us, Todd thought he had more time. The doctor didn't create a sense of urgency. But where Todd failed to mention in his medical file was his family history. Todd did not know that his grandfather had heart disease and died of it, nor did he know that his uncle died on the table during open heart surgery. Had Todd known to check yes in those boxes where he checked no, even when his cholesterol numbers were elevated just slightly, they would have sent him in for immediate testing instead of having him come back in a couple months. So it's not knowing his family history is what cost Todd his life.
Let's talk about that for just a second. Family history.
Yes.
What do you mean when you say know your family history?
We need to know in our family what our parents are living with as far as a disease and or died of. We need to know what our grandparents died of. And when I go out to talk now, I encourage my audience to ask one question when they go home. Has anyone in our family ever had a heart attack? We need to know who has hypertension, who has diabetes, who has cancer or had cancer, who has high cholesterol. That's what we need to sit around the table and talk about. We don't like to talk about what our grandparents died of and what our uncles died of. Some of us like to say, oh, they died of old age. No one dies of old age. We all die of something. We may be elderly, but we die of something. So it's time for us, especially in our community, to start asking questions about what our loved ones died of. What did our uncles die of? What did our aunts die of? That it's time for us to know our family history.
Okay, now let's say I know that. Let's say I know that my grandfather died of cancer. My grandmother may have died of a heart condition. Once I know my family history, what next?
Well, then you take that information to your doctor. Because I encourage people in my audience not to consider yourself your doctor's partner, patient. We have to view ourselves as our doctor's partner. And our doctors really only know what we tell them. Had Todd known to tell our doctor that his grandfather had heart disease and that his uncle died on the table during open heart surgery, Todd would literally still be here today. Because just that information would have changed the whole dynamic of his testing. He would have been tested immediately. So it's just like with me. I have a strong history of breast cancer in my family. I am screened totally differently because of that. Had I not had the history of breast cancer, I wouldn't get screened every 6 months like I do instead of once a year like most women do.
Let's go back again to that tragic day, that very, very tragic day.
Yes.
Once you got the news that, of what had happened, talk to us about how this affected you, what you went through, the transformations you went through, and all of those things.
Khari, my life changed in a second. I was literally in the radio station, 45 seconds out from my newscast. The hotline phone rings. Paul Strong answers the phone, and I hear the news that my husband was involved in an accident that involved a fatality. And when I heard that it was my husband, immediately I shut down. And from that day forward, within 60 seconds, my life changed drastically. I became obsessed with learning what happened to my husband. How did this man who had just had his physical, this man that I just seen less than 2 hours ago, how are you calling me now and telling me this man is now gone, on his way to work out? So my life, I became obsessed with researching about heart disease, researching what was missed in my husband, what link was missing. And so I became obsessed with teaching and learning about what we can do to prevent this from happening to other people.
My goodness, that had to have been. And now for people who've gone through that, what do you recommend? What do you say in terms of how to handle it, how to get through that? What steps do you take? A lot of people, maybe not as public as what happened to you, but people have gone through that. Mothers have lost sons through bullet shots.
Absolutely.
All